Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February Service Committee meeting. Bob, would you please call roll?
Good morning, directors. Please indicate your attendance when I call your name. Director Smith.
Here.
Director.
Present.
Director Gardner.
Present.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. Now let's get started with today's meeting. First up is information item I1 is the operation staffing introductions by Chief Operations Officer Annette Dowrow.
Good morning and thank you. I've been in this role now for 6 months, and we've made a lot of changes in the transportation side of the operations division. So I just wanted to take a moment to introduce you to some of the staff who are not necessarily new to IndyGo, but we're excited to have them in their new roles. So first off, I'd like to introduce Tim Cox, who is our Deputy Chief of Transit Operations. And so Tim started with us as a paratransit operator, and then he moved into fixed route operations. And he was also a union steward, or elected union position. Then from there, he moved into the training department. Then he moved into service planning, where he was the BRT integration specialist who helped us launch the Red Line, which was a huge undertaking for IndyGo. And from there, he moved over to a manager position in the transportation department. Then he was tapped to go over to lead the training department. From there, he has moved back to transportation, and now he's leading transportation, paratransit, and training. So I just wanted to introduce him. And so he's got a wealth of experience on all sides of transportation. So with him, we've brought back Dwight Benjamin, who is who has served in the United States Marines before coming to IndyGo, where he was an operator and a supervisor, and he led the transportation department as well. And then he moved over to risk and safety. So we're excited to have him back leading transportation again. So we're going to expect a lot of great things this year, changes, and we've already seen them coming or in place, and there's a lot of excitement around that. And also, I'd like to introduce Chris Clay, who's our new manager of mobility services over paratransit. So he's only been with us since November, or mid to late November, but he's jumped right in. He has a background in management for trucking and logistics, so he's taken warp speed and getting to learn paratransit and all things around that. So we're very excited with all these new people in positions and where we're headed. So hopefully we'll come back later this year to highlight some of the things we've been able to do.
Excellent. Tim, Dwight, Chris, would you guys just please stand up again? I know how much you guys all like the attention, but appreciate your support of IndyGo and what's to come and what you've all accomplished thus far. So thank you for that. Thank you, Annette. Are there any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Next up is information item I2 is our ABBG intro and ABBG satisfaction survey results presented by managers of special projects and regional mobility integration. Ryan, I always love your title. Ryan Wilhite.
Thanks. Thanks, Director Gardner. Good morning. My name is Ryan Wilhite. I'm the manager of special projects and regional mobility integration. Most people forget everything after and. Today, I want to apologize in some ways, mainly to Tamika. I've got a number of slides, and she is my slide turner. So if anything gets off, it's because I'm over here trying to make sure we're moving forward. I have two things to present to you today. I'm doing it in a specific order so that you can understand the latter with the former. I'm introducing the American Bus Benchmarking Group to this body. I know it's been in board reports as we've been a member now for a little over, I believe, 2 years at this point. We can go ahead and advance that slide when you're ready over there. No problem. One of the things I wanted to highlight, no, you're good. One of the things I wanted to highlight here is that we have a fellow. He is a PhD candidate who helps us with American Bus Benchmarking Group tasks. Matt Schwertfeger. He's not here right now, but he helped me put this slide deck together. Many of my projects, I am merely a facilitator, and there's a lot of IndyGo staff that are supporting putting it together. I like to try and highlight those as much as I remember and can. So just background there. We can go ahead and move forward. A little bit additional background on this group. There's 27 member agencies. In order to become a member, you have to be unanimously elected by existing members. They are all across the United States, as you can see. Some concentrations in California, Ohio. A lot of the group is focused on, as you might imagine, data, benchmarking our data against the other members, and then also sharing through study and discussion through forums and other research projects. We can go ahead and advance that. The American Bus Benchmarking Group has several principles here. I'm not going to read this slide in detail. You guys have a copy of this, and there's a lot of information. I'll highlight the items that are in bold here and maybe give some just general background on each one of them. Confidentiality is an important part of this. We are required to sign non-disclosure agreements. Every staff member is required to sign a non-disclosure agreement when they get access to their portal. In fact, everything that you'll see here has been anonymized and indexed to protect information that other agencies have provided without any withholding there. Collaboration and independence. Collaborative, as I mentioned before, we have the discussion forums. We have really good annual conferences. And then independence, they're not run by APTA. They are put together by Transport Strategy Center out of London. And they are complementary to what some of the NTD data and APTA does. And then the last thing that I like to highlight for our staff is speed. So if we have questions, we can post a discussion post, and they strive for about 10 answers in under 30 days. So it's been helpful for a number of projects. I know for myself, we have a fair equity analysis that we completed. We hadn't done something similar to this in a while. We were able to get some background documents to help us with that as well. Let's go ahead and advance that. I wanted to talk a little bit about the benchmarking group in context with our strategic plan. Benchmarking group has a ton of key performance indicators that they've crafted over years. These is based on industry experience, but then also some academic research. And so I wanted to try and highlight how we can tie potentially the benchmarking KPIs to our strategic plan. Let's go ahead and move forward here. Yeah, I'm not a lingerer, so we can advance there. Here is one of their scorecards that they have. So you can see they organize their KPIs into different groups: growth and learning, customer-facing, internal processes, financial, safety. They're considering modifying environmental. It's pretty niche, so they're looking at changing that, and they're getting feedback from the member agencies. We can go ahead and advance there. So, for instance, strategies and objectives that we have for our strategic plan, we have protect frontline workers. We have 3 objectives underneath that. So one potential KPI that we could look at from ABBG is vehicle collisions. They track that preventable, non-preventable, on property, other. Let's advance. I'll show you kind of what that could look like for us. So you can see here one of the outputs from their products that they provide to us. And the individual agency, IndyGo, is highlighted in blue. You can see that on this particular grouping of metrics that we are towards the higher end of collisions per vehicle miles. This is the type of metric and comparison that is helpful internally as we can ask questions of agencies that are lower than us, try and understand what policies and procedures they've put into place to try and improve or modify their own ranking. And so if we keep going forward, You can see this is another graph that they produce. And so we can see trend over time for IndyGo, and we can see trend over time for other agencies as well. Try to understand kind of changes that we've made and how that's affected our data, and then changes, like I said before, that others have made, and what we might be able to port over to IndyGo. A lot of these reports are highlighted at annual conferences, one for fixed route and one for paratransit. We spend basically 3 days diving in with other transit agencies, being able to ask questions. And then in instances where an agency might be at the higher end or the lower end, good, bad, depending on the metric, they might be able to explain why that is. Let's go ahead and advance. Here's another one, preventable vehicle collisions per 100,000 vehicle miles. You can see where we rank. And so as you see, everything is anonymized. You can't tell which one of the 27 that are highlighted here, but you can see where we are in comparison to the average. And so this is helpful information for IndyGo to continue to benchmark itself and understand which one of these items and metrics we want to be average at, or which one of these items or metrics we want to be better than average, or we're okay being average at something because we can't be the best at everything. We don't quite have the resources for that, I think, in general. That's a tough ask for almost any agency. We can go ahead and advance. So another one that I'll highlight, and a metric that we might be able to look at from ABBG, increasing ridership. So come from customer information, on-time departure performance, and operating cost efficiency. So we can advance in that. And this is just a similar type of example that our staff can pull and can review, and that our staff has access to throughout the agency. So there's specific staff members, like our operation performance team, that has access to ABBG data, and our operations team in general that has access to it. And so we can see where we rank compared to our other ABBG members for all these different items. One thing I will highlight is that where we don't have a blue diamond, we may not have been able to provide the data for that. That is something that is ongoing for our team to make sure that we're able to capture that data so that this is as helpful for us as it can be. Go ahead and keep going. So here you can see for on-time performance, kind of where we sit. On-time performance is a fascinating metric. I don't have nearly enough time to explain all the intricacies that go into this chart, but you can see kind of where we fall compared to the rest of the ABBG team. So for areas where the on-time performance is better for individuals or agencies, we can ask them questions, right? Like, what have you done? And then for those that are near the bottom there, they can figure out what can we do to improve our on-time performance. We'll keep marching forward here. Cost efficiency, so operating cost per vehicle mile. These charts, in my mind, are really helpful over time. As you can see, we've got data from, I think for us, it's 2018 to 23 as well. And so we can see how things trend, and we can compare ourselves once again. Feel free, of course, to stop me. Sometimes I sound a little bit like an auctioneer. I'm not trained like one. I just know that there's some of this that I can kind of push through a little bit as more of examples for the board directors. This last one, prioritize long-term stability. I picked out a couple: operating cost effectiveness and staff productivity. So we can look in there, peek in, and see kind of the trend lines. You can see in the faint gray how the ABBG other members have looked, and we can compare that to the average of all the entire ABBG member agencies. They do a lot of work, the TSC, making sure that they're factoring in changes and differences between cost of living in areas, so that way we try and have as much apples to apples as we can. And then here, this is all staff. I think this is one area where we haven't quite gotten all the data, but I wanted to just show you some of the things that we can produce: labor productivity, paid and unplanned staff absenteeism, et cetera. All right, with that, I'll push pause. Are there any questions on this very quick run through of ABBG before I dive into my next presentation?
How is 2024 and 2025 looking on some of the areas that seem to be out of kilter, so to speak?
That's a great question, Director Smith. I haven't looked at the more recent data to see what those look like, but that'll be something that we always keep an eye on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brian, who all of the team has access to this information? Just
Yeah.
trying to understand how it's getting cascaded throughout the agency.
Yeah, that's a great question. We initially limited it to a number of individuals as we were trying to figure out how to disseminate. It's individuals like myself and Annette. We have Matt. We have Cheryl. We have others that have access to the specific website, the operations performance team as well, since they're gathering data and inputting data. We have been trying to understand as we have continued our journey as a member, how best to disseminate information. So one of the next presentation, I don't have another one after this, but the customer survey presentation that I'll talk about, we disseminate that information on our hub, so the internal site, with anonymized information as best as we can. So right now it's more limited in many ways, but we've tried to target staff members where it's pretty key for either their day-to-day activities or strategically for, long-term plans they have.
Yeah, and do you guys come together as a group to kind of understand how you're utilizing it? Sorry about that, but yeah, to just kind of track kind of utilization of it, to just understand how helpful or useful it is.
Yeah, we meet somewhat regularly. The operations performance team is pretty busy with the resourcing, and so we've got some plans in place of how we can try and use not only the ABBG data but other data that team is gathering and provide valuable regular updates to relevant team members. So, I mean, we were meeting somewhat regularly, and then it felt like, oh man, I don't know if this is the right cadence, and so we've been reevaluating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments? Thanks.
Yeah,
Brian.
of course. You're not quite done with me.
Nope. For this portion.
Yeah, for this portion. Yeah. I wanted to set up this customer satisfaction survey with, of course, the ABBG background. There's a lot of section titles, so don't be scared by the number of PowerPoint slides that you see there. But the ABBG offers an optional customer survey. If you recall, IndyGo started a customer survey in 23 with a pilot utilizing Peterson Fellows as kind of a backbone of that particular project. That's been quite helpful. We've been able to baseline that and really continue to improve that. Now we have the satisfaction survey. This is part of our membership, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We can go forward here. It's okay. This is background that's the ABBG actually puts this all together. So one of the benefits of ABBG is they do a lot of work with the staff that they have, and so we get a lot of value out of that particular staff. There's some background here. I'm not going to go through necessarily in detail all of what they had, but just wanted to show you kind of how they set this type of report up. In general, we can go through for the executive summary here, which is, yes, a little hard to read on this particular slide, but what we know from what we can gain from the customer survey is that we continue to have above average satisfaction, and this satisfaction survey allows us to target opportunities for improvement in different areas like ease of use, information, and security. We can use that information to provide it to our staff to hopefully understand if we're already completing projects and initiatives to improve those areas, or to consider areas or projects or policies to try and improve those. Let's go ahead and move forward. This is the first time we've done the satisfaction survey. It's the 13th year that they've done it, and they do it, as I said, it's optional. Let me see here. We did the in-person part of it for a week, but the actual survey is released for an entire month. If you're not familiar, we do the surveys down at the Customer Transit Center, the Carson Transit Center, and we provide incentives for people who participate in the survey. This survey is shorter than the perception survey. It's 32 questions. And this time we had 766 valid responses. 228 were online and 538 were tablets, so collected by the surveyors themselves. The surveyors that we use are transit ambassadors that have been recruited. They know the system quite well, and they're familiar with our service, and they're very used to approaching strangers and asking them to take a survey. Go ahead and advance. I'm not going to read all this because I think that this would be the last presentation I would do. But I wanted to give you a list of all the survey questions. As I've mentioned, it's pretty comprehensive. There are a number of demographic questions that are easier for individuals to answer quickly, and then there are a number of questions that are basically agree, disagree type of questions. Go ahead and advance here. As I mentioned, we received a number of cleaned questions. This is total responses, so it'll differ. And then you can see our responses by language. We continue to try and understand how we can make sure we're collecting individuals' responses from individuals who are limited English proficiency. So we've got a lot of different methods that we use for that. ABBG does the data cleaning, and they've got a really good team that does this. And I think it's the same people that do multiple surveys a year. I'm not going to dive into all of these, but there's ways in which we try to make sure that they're valid responses. Are they, fully complete? Was it potentially done by a bot? Those kind of things are ways that we try to capture that. These are abbreviation keys. We don't need to worry about that too much. Let's go ahead and move forward on that. They lump the questions into general areas: availability, comfort, customer care, ease of use, environment, information, security, and time. This will become important as we move forward through the analysis. You don't have to memorize these. I'm not expecting any of you to, but just note that they will reference this throughout the report as well. Go ahead and move forward. You can see that they provide demographics of respondents. One thing that I like to highlight for most of our staff when it comes to responses is frequency of use. So how often are the respondents using IndyGo? One thing we've noticed over time is that online respondents tend to have a profile that is different than in-person respondents. And so we try to consider that when we're looking at each individual survey. Go ahead. One of the most important parts of the survey is the Net Promoter Score. This is response to, would you recommend us to a friend? The Net Promoter Score is really interesting because of the way that it's broken out. Promoters are those that give us a 9 or a 10, so they're strong promoters. Neutrals are those that are 7 or 8. And then detractors are those that are 0 through 6. So really what the score ends up being is promoters minus detractors, and we're crossing our fingers for a positive score. That's what we're hoping for here. As you can see, our Net Promoter Score for the customer satisfaction survey was positive, which is always good. We're at 27%. What we can hope to do, right, is try and convince neutrals and detractors to kind of move up, if you will. So that way we've got more people that are more likely to recommend us to a friend. Word of mouth is a very important part of this.
Hey, Ryan.
Yeah.
Before you move on, will you just say a little bit more about that online profile?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So for the customer perception survey, we've noticed that the demographic profile for people who take it online tends to be more white and people who are riding the bus less frequently. It's an interesting perspective because it may be people that were riding it more frequently and decided not to. It's a specific population that we could target certain things to depending on their responses. Whereas the in-person responses tend to be more people of color who ride way more frequently. We would expect that. We're intercepting people at the transit center.
Yeah.
So we would expect people to be riding more frequently, definitely. So those are two different perspectives, which can be helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah. This chart can show the overall versus the average satisfaction. So satisfaction of an individual question versus the overall satisfaction that a respondent provided. So basically saying, how are we, this individual metric we may score better at than the overall. So we may also score less. So that's one thing that they track. Let's keep moving forward here. So where do we succeed? I've highlighted not everything because it's a pretty long report, but we wanted to pick out some things here. So where does IndyGo succeed? We had high levels of satisfaction with how easy it is to pay a fare, as well as how easy it is to enter and leave a bus. And then we are able to break down by different demographic data. So 65 years and older place a priority on ease of use as their second highest priority. And so this is graphic to the right kind of shows you, where people have ranked those different categories. And so we want to pay attention to those questions and parts of our service depending on where they're ranking them. Environment, as you can see, is way down at the bottom. So maybe that's something that we shouldn't be as worried about because our customers are not ranking that one as nearly as highly. Go ahead and advance that one. Another one where we succeed is above average satisfaction on network and schedule. And that's great because those are areas that we want to make sure we're continuing to have high satisfaction scores on. You can see here that all of the strongly disagree higher down at the very bottom there, punctuality, vehicle cleanliness. What they will do, and we'll show that in a second, is pairing this scoring with the important scoring. We'll go ahead and advance. This type of graphic shows you where the categories or responses that were above average. And so we can say, okay, we're doing great here. And then you can see the tail end of that where we can say, how much do we want to spend resources or time trying to improve some of these other areas? High impact areas is what I've mentioned previously. And so we try to look at those top two priorities, across as many demographic groups as we can. Availability and time are pretty important. So buses that run frequently, buses that operate near them, and buses that stay on schedule with shorter travel times. This is not a surprise. We are not surprised by this, but it is important for us to continue to focus on these items because that's what our customers say they're really focused on and is the most important part. And so then we ask the question, how satisfied are they? And you can see that it's high for availability. And then we have problems where we drop in time-related factors, especially punctuality. So that's something that our team can review and say, yes, we've seen that in our own data. And how can we, these are the ways in which we can try and improve those things. So this type of crossing between how they're ranking and how they're scoring us in satisfaction is an important part for us to reflect and target. Targeting is really important. We've got a lot of key performance indicators. It is really easy to drown in the ocean of them. So instead, let's focus on some of the things that our customers tell us are most important to us and that maybe we're not performing to our own standards potentially. So this chart graph I love because it tries to explain kind of the priority area and then how well we're doing. Are we doing above average? So the x-axis here is the priority ranking. So to the right, increasing passenger priority. And then the y-axis, I can barely read it, but it's increasing passenger satisfaction. So how satisfied are they? When I try to talk about this, I try to label it into simple quadrants, right? We want to make this one better, right? We want to make this one, we maybe not care as much about that one. In general, I would say we want to try to move those areas that are really important to people above that average line, right? So that yellow dot of time on that graph, we would want to try and move up because it's important, but we're receiving lower than average scores on satisfaction. We've already mentioned opportunities for improvement in some areas, but we can identify them specifically through the ABBG reports, so ease of use, information, and security. So areas where there's medium priority and mixed satisfaction. Go ahead and advance. And then just another slide showing kind of showing the responses, percentages, and then the different areas. So safety when waiting, and then alternative information. So once again, trying to help staff and help the board understand where can we potentially target resources if we aren't already. And a lot of times when we talk to staff about these results, it'll be we already know we're working on those things. Pain points, the last thing I believe, it's been a minute since I've looked at this. Let me hold on one second. Yes. Pain points blocking the promoter score improvement are highlighted here at the very bottom. I swore to myself that I would put this on a screen before I presented. Resolving problems, punctuality, and vehicle cleanliness. And these are areas that we report on in our board report, and we track them really well. We know that there are areas where we can improve. But what we're trying to do is show these are areas that if we work a little bit harder, we might be able to convince people to recommend us to a friend. And that's a key part of our customer understanding how the customers perceive us. All right, I've been talking for a while. Any questions?
Questions for Ryan?
No question, Ryan, but this is really good information. I think we had a similar presentation, I don't know, several months ago, just related to the surveying aspect. And you hit on a lot of those today. Definitely appreciate the information that you've shared.
Great.
I'll echo those comments. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate your presentation.
Of course. Thank you all.
All right, next up is information item I3. It's the red line after traffic study report presented by Director of Capital Projects, Mr. Matt Duffy.
Good morning, directors. Matt Duffy, Director of Capital Projects here at IndyGo. I'm here to present the findings from the after traffic study along the red line. Next slide, please. So to start, I want to remind everybody what the lane configurations are along Meridian Street and College Avenue that were implemented with the red line. So center running transit lanes on both corridors. On Meridian Street, the outside lanes are for general traffic, and the inside lanes were converted from general traffic lanes to bus-only use on Meridian Street in each direction. And then on College Avenue, there were 2 northbound lanes, and one inside northbound lane was converted to be a bidirectional bus-only lane on College Avenue. And then the outside lanes are for general traffic only. Next slide, please. And then at the intersections, this is showing the northbound approach at 30th Street and Meridian Street. This is typical for most intersections along Meridian and College, where the bus goes through the intersection at the same time as traffic going through. And then the left turn does not operate at the same time. They are on their own phase. So this is called protected only left turn phasing, which means those vehicles can only proceed through the intersection when they have the right of way or the green arrow to do so. So they're not judging speed and distance of oncoming traffic because that traffic doesn't go at the same time as that left turn phase. And this is important to note because it's a lot of the data points that we'll see here are as a result of these intersection operations and the way that the corridor was designed with center running transit. So just keep that in mind with some of these data points, particularly the crash data results that we'll see. Next slide, please. So the study itself included several different metrics, traffic volumes, travel times, speeds, and crashes. And IndyGo agreed to conduct this study not only because it's, I think, good practice for the industry as a whole, but also with part of the agreement with the city to implement dedicated lanes was to conduct before and after analysis for traffic in general. So this study follows through with that agreement. Next slide, please. The study limits, so this is generally the north side of the red line, so from downtown to the end of the line on the north side. The graphic here is showing the, oh, sorry, this is, I made this in PowerPoint, so my fancy animations aren't showing up here, but I had Meridian and College shown here to flip between them, but so this is showing the College Avenue portion. We studied the corridor itself and then parallel corridors, as well as connecting corridors. So the image on the left is the blue parallel corridors that run parallel to Meridian or College. And then the yellow ones were connecting corridors. So in theory, if traffic decides there's congestion, if people decide there's congestion on Meridian or College, maybe they'll use the connecting corridor to get to a parallel corridor to go around it. We also looked at benchmarking corridors, such as Kessler, Emerson, Michigan, Keystone. These are other corridors on the north side that were unaffected by red line implementation and really outside of the influence area. So it's a way to evaluate not just the Meridian and College parallel corridors, but also other corridors that wouldn't see as much of effect from the red line implementation. Next slide, please. The reporting periods before and after, generally the before condition is 2016. Crash data spans 3-year periods, so that's the only exception here, and I'll note that later. And then the after period is 2024, and the before and after periods span the pandemic timeframe, and mention that because there are broader changes to travel patterns and traffic as a result of the pandemic, and not necessarily due to the red line. And I think that's something that gets missed a lot in commentary about the red line is the pandemic happened, right? That changed people's travel habits, not just for transit use, but for general traffic use. So a lot of national research that I've seen, traffic is immediately after the pandemic, there was less peaking. And so there was AM peak that was heavy congestion, PM peak. That went away for a few years, but it has returned. And there is more evidence of those peak periods similar to pre-pandemic conditions. In the before condition, so the traffic analysis that was conducted for the red line, there was an assumed 25% reduction in volumes on Meridian and on College. And the thinking there is that if there is a reduction in capacity because lanes are converted from general traffic to bus-only use, then people would change their habits. And if there is a certain amount of congestion that changes that habits, then perhaps they would go to other corridors. So that just mentioned that 25%, and I'll come back to that as well in the next few metrics. Next slide, please. Thank you. The first metric is the traffic volumes themselves. They were measured during the AM and PM peak periods. The AM period is from 7 to 9 AM. The PM peak period is from 4 to 6 PM. There were no daily traffic counts collected during the before condition, and this is lessons learned here where I think there could have been more data collected along the corridors and on parallel corridors that has made the before-after analysis more complicated because we didn't have sufficient before traffic data. And that's something that we're gathering more data on for Blue Line particularly, that has more similar parallel corridor type traffic movements. The Purple Line corridors they're more spread out, right? 42nd, 34th, 30th, they're a little bit farther away from 38th. And so we're more focused on this for Blue Line than we were for Purple Line. But I mentioned that as a area of improvement. But the next slide, I dial in on that percent change. So I mentioned the 25% reduction that was assumed at the beginning, but these percentages are significantly higher than that 25%. So the corridor is carrying less vehicles than in the after condition, and even after considering that 25% reduction. Now, this could be made up for a couple factors that I mentioned. The seasonal variation is one, where the traffic counts in the before condition were collected in October, and in the after condition, they were collected in February. So that could be about 5% difference. And that's based on NDOT has a wealth of data that they collect and manage. So they have seasonal factors built into that. Could be a change in travel patterns where people are deciding maybe they don't take certain trips during the peak hour. Maybe they decide I'm going to wait until 6 p.m. or I'm going to go a little bit earlier if there's peak hour congestion. It could be due to the roadway capacity that was theorized in the before condition, where we expected people to potentially take different routes, parallel corridors. And the unfortunate part is we do not have the data to be able to validate that. And that is what the expectation was, is if they're not taking Meridian or College, what other routes are they taking? And there, I think anecdotally, living in the area and consulting with other engineers and practitioners, haven't seen widespread congestion on those parallel corridors, such that traffic just moved. Did we move the problem to a different street potentially? And that doesn't seem to be the case here. Next slide, please. Travel times is the next metric that we analyzed. These are average travel times from the beginning to the end of each corridor. So Meridian Street is from 18th to 38th, and then College Avenue would be the amount of time it takes to drive from 38th all the way to 66th or in the opposite direction. These are averaged over multiple runs over the peak periods. And on the next slide, I've got those summarized here for each peak hour. The results show that there is a average marginal increase of 1 to 3 minutes in some cases in the peak period and the peak direction. So in the AM peak hour inbound showed higher inbound, meaning towards downtown, showing higher travel times, and then vice versa, outbound away from downtown in the PM peak period. In some cases, it was relatively flat or neutral. And this is important here because one of the big concerns prior to the implementation of the red line was that dedicating traffic lanes to bus-only lanes will degrade general traffic use, such that there'll be gridlock and people won't be able to meet daily needs in their own automobiles. And that's not the case here in this data. And this is a peak hour analysis. And so this can be considered what the worst case is on the corridor. So there's many times throughout the day where it's probably relatively the same as it was prior to implementation. And there were lots of fears about Carmageddon, right? And vehicles grinding to a halt. And that's not what the data shows here. So that's a good finding. And I think it's an important point about when we talk about allocating space for buses or other traffic. Next slide, please. The corridor speeds, AM peak is the table on the left, and the PM peak is the table on the right. So these are speeds along the corridor, and these will correlate with the travel times. It's over the same distance, and because it's if it's a longer travel time, you will have lower speeds as associated with it. And then the percent changes there are shown as well. Next slide, please. Another data point on the speeds, we collected spot speeds. So this is at an actual point, what speed are the vehicles going at? And this is 85% of the vehicles are going this, 85% of the vehicles are going this speed or less. And so a little bit less in the after condition. And this is consistent with other corridors in the city and consistent with speeds in other urban areas. And the speed limit for note is 35 miles an hour. So it's good to see the average speed within the speed limit, definitely. Next slide, please. The last metric I'd like to discuss is the crash data. I lumped together Meridian Street and College Avenue. And then parallel corridors are Central and then Meridian, where north of 38th Street, Penn, Washington, Capitol, Illinois. And then the benchmark corridors, 10th Street, 38th Street, Emerson, Kessler. And then the next slide, I've got those detailed. The Meridian Street and College Avenue show significant reduction in serious and fatal injury crashes and overall crashes as well, compared to parallel corridors and benchmarking corridors. And this is due to the implementation of center running transit and the way that the intersections operate now. And this is an important point here and probably the most salient of the safety benefits that the corridors have realized because of the implementation of center running transit. And it's a benefit that I think is far-reaching and at a time when traffic crashes are as problematic as they are, and especially for vulnerable road users, it's a huge benefit to the community to have a safer roadway to operate on. So 30 to 38% reductions. It's a huge benefit for the corridor. And then just in summary here, pulling together all the points about the volume, travel time, speed, and crashes. After implementation, the corridor is carrying fewer vehicles with moderate increases in travel times during the peak hours, with fewer significant serious injuries and overall crashes. And the data does not show overall widespread evidence of other traffic impacts on parallel corridors. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Matt. Are there questions or comments for Matt regarding this item?
Man, I'm just curious, how are you capturing this data? Is it manpower or using technology to do most of this, or what? Just curious.
Yeah, so the before condition, most of it was manual. So the travel time runs are literally driving in a car up and down the corridor multiple times and averaging them. Same thing with the after period. And then I did mention some of the data that we tried to evaluate the before and after condition. That's with Bluetooth data, so cell phone data that is readily available. The problem is when we were going back to 2016 with some of that data, we didn't have the confidence that we could use it reliably, and so that's why we have the discrepancy with before and after on some of the parallel corridors. But yeah, generally it's manual. The spot speeds are camera technology that you can set up and leave for a certain period of time.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
And Matt, just share with us briefly how we're planning to utilize this information.
Yeah, so we definitely share it with the city, and we have shared it with the Department of Public Works. And then it's information that I think transit agencies across the country, there's routinely questions about, hey, we'd love to implement transit lanes, but here's some of the roadblocks that we're facing. So it's data that can be shared for the industry as a whole, as other areas are trying to achieve the same things that IndyGo has achieved. And then I think it's just really good information to share with the public when people talk about being against transit lanes for certain reasons, and then we can point to the data and say, yes, there's marginal increases in travel time, but here's the other benefits associated with it. So I think it helps with the messaging and certainly helps to dispel some of the common misconceptions against bus lanes.
Thank you for that.
Will you be able to use any of the data specifically to assist with, say, schedules or any adjustments that may need to be made to like the traffic signals that may impact the IndyGo system itself?
That's a good question. So separate effort here. We also have TSP, Transit Signal Priority. And in the last couple of years, there's been more of a focus on making sure we're looking at not only the impacts of traffic, but how we can improve transit with that technology. So it's making sure that we're pulling in some of the intersection operations, so certain directions, and combining that with transit and making sure that we can meet mutual goals and not have undue burden on one mode or the other. So I think it's integrating both modes of travel to realize overall benefits. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep. Thank you.
Next up, we have information item I4 is the Fair Chance Update Policy and Implementation presented by Director of Talent Acquisition and Learning and Development, Stephanie Stephanie, help me. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'm excited to have the opportunity to tell you about our Fair Chance hiring policy. And next slide, please. I want to start with why this policy matters to us as an organization. As a public transportation provider, our mission goes beyond moving people from point A to point B. We serve the public, and that responsibility includes serving them equitably, reliably, and safely. And that responsibility extends to how we hire and develop our talent. Fair chance hiring reflects our belief that people should be evaluated as individuals and not defined solely by past involvement with the justice system. Fair chance hiring allows us to strengthen our workforce, expand our talent pools, and ensure that our employee base reflects the communities that we serve. Next slide, please. All right, and a policy overview. So at its core, the Fair Chance policy sets the guardrails for how we evaluate candidates. A key part of this is individualized assessments and ensuring that candidates are not automatically declined due to past involvement with the justice system, and that the assessments are aligned with the role requirements and operational relevance. Consistency in our process is critical as it allows us to ensure fair and equitable hiring as well as compliance with applicable laws and regulations. This policy also promotes rehabilitation and helping reintegrate individuals into the workforce. Next slide, please. So I want to show what this policy looks like in practice. So what you see here is the process for our external candidates. The scope for this policy includes internal promotions and external hiring. Currently and historically, we have not included background checks as part of our internal promotion process. So for external candidates, when we are ready to make the conditional offer, that's extended. The candidate signs that and completes our background check consent form. If the background check reveals any convictions, then they receive a pre-adverse notice, as well as a request for information. At that point in time, the candidate has the ability to provide us with information regarding mitigating circumstances about the event. They can contest the accuracy, as well as provide evidence of rehabilitation. So once we receive that information from the candidate, all identifying information is redacted. That's a critical piece as it ensures confidentiality, candidate anonymity, as well as removes potential for bias. So once that information is prepared, it is presented to our Fair Chance Committee. And if you could move to the next slide. So the committee consists of 5 team members, 1 from legal, 1 from risk and safety, and 1 from security, as well as 2 team members from the Department of People and Culture. The committee is intentionally made up cross-functionally to ensure a multitude of perspectives. And in 2025, the committee was meeting on a monthly cadence. This year, we have increased that meeting cadence to be bi-weekly. This ensures that we are able to get through our hiring process faster, which better supports the organization and improves the candidate experience. And that is all I have. It's much shorter than the previous presentations, and I will open it up for questions.
Thank you, Stephanie. Are there any questions or comments?
That's one question. And that's, I like this. I really do. What impact does it have on federal funding? Some of this seems to be contrary to what's happening at the federal level.
I honestly do not know as far as federal funding goes. So I can't answer that. I'm not sure if it has an impact.
Yeah, Director Smith, this is Jennifer Pierce. I also am not aware. I mean, we have been doing it for a number of years. And so it hasn't been flagged as an issue with our funding, but I will certainly, we'll dig into it and just confirm. Yeah, let you know if there is anything.
Stephanie, just for a point of clarification, I want to make sure I didn't misunderstand. You mentioned that um, you do not do background checks for internal promotions, or you will start doing background checks for internal promotions?
We currently don't incorporate that as part of our process, but this policy allows us to give the opportunity to do that in the future. And it would be the same practices that we're doing for the review process would apply.
And I guess one last question, and just let me know if this is too far in the weeds. I certainly understand. I appreciate the diversity between the departments on the committee. As a part of that structure, are you all also looking at, as you're evaluating the information that an applicant may have shared, if there's some information that you want clarity on from their background check? Are you looking at a common set of factors that you're considering, or is it totally left up to the feedback that's given individually from the committee members?
So it's in large part based on what the candidate is providing. Some candidates go in detail on what they've done to rehabilitate themselves, provide more insight on the circumstances of the events. So it's really intentionally looking at also the role. What are the convictions? How does it relate to the position that they're going to be in, as well as the requirements of the position? So it's intentionally individual to ensure that it makes sense for the position that they're being put into. So the process remains the same, but we are looking at all of those different factors in order to make a decision.
Thank you.
Stephanie, maybe this last question. How are we working in partnership with our union friends in this process? Can you help me kind of understand if they're involved or?
Yeah, we previously did have our manager of labor relations as part of the committee. Currently, he's no longer on that committee. So I don't believe we have any union members currently, but there's definitely opportunity for that.
Yeah. I would just encourage just some type of communication or involvement in the process.
Yep.
Yep. That's all I.
Stephanie, it might be good to share a little bit about just confidentiality in terms of, because I know the union has asked to be on the committee and we purposefully not added them to the committee. So from the standpoint of maintaining each individual's confidentiality, I don't know if you, or I know Lakeisha's here as well from the legal department. One of the two of you can share a little bit about that.
Yeah, and part of this process is redacting all of the information, all identifying information, all pronouns, because we don't want people looking at this and knowing who the individual is. So that's how we ensure that confidentiality piece during the review process. Does that provide more insight or?
That's helpful. I think I'm just, yeah. Okay.
All right, awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay, next up, we have information item I5, the Blue Line construction update presented by Construction Project Manager Mike Schneider.
Thank you, everyone. Just a quick Blue Line construction update over the past few months. On the next slide, we will see the segment map. As you know, there are 5 design segments as part of this project and 12 construction segments. This presentation will focus on 7 of those 12 construction segments. I have called those out on the bottom of the map. We will begin with segment A1 on the west end of the corridor, move our way through downtown, and end with the east terminus in construction segment F. On the next slide, beginning in segment A1, we see the Little Eagle Creek outfall. Crews have installed the new concrete storm pipe for that outfall. and are currently continuing that storm run to the east. With the cold weather, a majority of Package A production has consisted of underground work since the HMA plants are shut down for the winter months. Moving on to segment A3 in the next slide. We can see major excavation and shoring work in place near Miley Avenue for the sanitary sewer. This is a significant element of work that needs to take place in order for Grade X to continue their production in the area. We do expect progress to continue in the coming weeks. Okay, staying in segment A3 and the zoo station. This is just the beginning of excavation. I took this picture a little over a week ago, but Wilhelm has made considerable progress in the area preparing the site. There has been good coordination between packages A and B. They have both been willing to move throughout the corridor and continue progress outside of any utility work, which mitigates delays to the best of our ability. Okay, on to segment B1 in the downtown area. With the convention center station, center plinth and ramp wall pour, crews are continuing to pour concrete during the winter as long as careful precautions are maintained. Obviously, the cold weather can affect the curing process for our concrete. It does actually release heat during the curing process, so we try to maintain that as well as possible during the cold weather. Also, during the dry winter months, we try to prevent as much evaporation as possible. Excess water evaporation from the concrete surface can actually cause a plastic shrinkage cracking, which would create a critical issue to any concrete that is placed. Okay, segment B2 on the next slide, moving back to package A. As you can see, we have had some night work as part of this project. Here, crews are placing stone backfill, fabric, and HMA restoration for the newly placed sewer pipe. This is the same sewer system that ties in Pogue's Run just to the west. Crews are now continuing that run to the east. We currently do have a 90-day eastbound closure in place at Southeastern as Grade X mobilizes into segment C1. On to segment C2, continuing with package A. Just some more pavement restoration from utility improvements. We were lucky to have HMA plants stay open a little late this year into mid-December. I can't remember the exact date. But that did allow us to push our production and eliminate as many disruptions as possible to the public. And we don't have an exact date of when the plants will open again. We are hoping for somewhere around the first week of March. This will allow our paving operations to continue as early as possible during the upcoming construction season. On to segment E and back to package B on the east side of the project. We have the Franklin Station. On the left, you can see rebar and conduit runs in place for the foundation concrete pour, which is depicted on the right side of the screen. Again, you can see cold weather protection is ready to be placed. We ensure that these blankets are placed within 60 minutes of finishing the concrete to avoid evaporation and help with the curing process. Moving on, we have the post road station. We can see the bus pad being poured next to the completed foundation. Last week, they were actually able to set the steel structure. It's a little pre-installation picture. I wasn't able to, I was tied up in meetings, so nothing good yet, but we'll have an update on that. But on the left again, you can see the crews ready to place that protection, for the newly placed concrete. Wilhelm has done a great job so far with their work. This has allowed us to avoid any major rework throughout the corridor. This helps us avoid any preventable and critical schedule delays to the project. Staying in segment E with the Cherry Tree Station, a better image of a structure being placed. I was able to catch that one. These steel structures are almost all fabricated already and in storage. The crews are working diligently with the goal of setting one structure per week, which was our peak production on Purple Line. So far, they haven't missed a beat, and hopefully that will continue with the rest of the stations. On to segment F, thank you. With the Midhopper Station, just a close-up of one of those structures that were placed. Once the crews do place each structure, several days of fabrication is needed. We do inspect the welds and coatings to ensure a durable product that will stand the elements for years to come. Final construction update, segment F at the East Side Mobility Hub. Just a clear site for now. We haven't had a ton of civil work yet due to certain delays, but we should expect quite a bit of production during the 2026 construction season. Package C is still on schedule to finish ahead of both packages A and package B. It is my last slide as far as construction updates. A quick one this month, just due to winter, but hopefully the next one will have quite a bit more production. Speaking of schedule, to date, we have not had to officially change substantial completion. The crew and the team is working hard to mitigate any delays throughout the corridor and continue on schedule. Hopefully that remains. But we've done a good job so far. So have the crews. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to give an update. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate your presentation. Are there any questions or comments from Mike? Nope. I do want to, and maybe I missed this, Mike, how has the safety record been on the project thus far?
It's been good so far. A couple minor incidents, nothing major. We did have the other night, I'm sure you've seen in the news, there was a car that crashed into one of CEG's excavators. That wasn't from one of our contractors, so luckily we avoided that. Obviously, it was a critical injury. We do continue to have monthly safety meetings, so it is something that we are monitoring.
Thanks for that. And then you mentioned that the mobility, the segment F, which was part of your last slide, was running a little behind, but it wasn't critical. I'm just trying to make sure I understand kind of where that
So that
piece
site,
is.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
So the work there isn't as long as it would take to construct either the roadway or the stations, obviously. There were some property delays as well as weather delays. They have a lot of dirt work to do there, so once it gets wet enough, due to the elevations on the site, it's pretty hard to work that. So in one construction season, they can get quite a bit done. I'm expecting that to happen during the upcoming months when the weather's a little nicer and a little drier.
Excellent. We'll hold you to that. All right. Appreciate your presentation.
Of course. Thank you.
And our final agenda item is information item I6, an update on our Mobility Advisory Committee presented by MAC Chair Chris Hollingsworth. Is Chris in the house?
Mr. Chair, we did not receive confirmation from
Okay.
Mr. Hollingsworth, but I do wonder if he's online.
I am online.
Okay.
Hey, Chris, go ahead with your update.
First off, we would like to thank the committee and thank Robert Fry for the work that they did in getting our new bylaws approved. The big thing we're working on right now is filling our membership roles. Some of our members have dropped off due to the new year, and some have dropped off due to personal issues. So we're working on that. I apologize that I don't have a more comprehensive update. At the last meeting, I was actually out of town and could not attend. But we are continuing to discuss issues such as taxi vouchers and the continued good performance from MV. We're pretty happy with the performance of MV. We are thinking about some kind of a survey of paratransit users and people that would use paratransit, but we need to find out what their perceptions are and see if now that MV Transit is here that we can possibly improve those perceptions in order to see if more people need to be using paratransit and how that would affect MV services. So really that's what we've got going. And like I said, I apologize for not having a more comprehensive report.
Chris, that sounded like a pretty comprehensive report to me. And we appreciate the update and actually look forward to connecting with you soon.
Great.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chris. This concludes our agenda. Our meeting now is adjourned. Our next meeting of the Service Committee will be held on Thursday, April 9th, 2026 at 8:30 a.m. here in our East Campus Boardroom. As always, recordings of our meetings are available on Channel 16 and on our website at indigo.net. Thanks, everyone.